Welcome to the Monday Monologue. Well, as you can see, there's a little different stuff in front of us today, and it's one of the things I wanted to put out there on the channel, and I definitely want to see some comments. I've wanted to do some photography content on YouTube for a long time, and I get quite a few comments people recognize, like the photochemicals and photo paper and stuff, and I wonder how many people out there that are into like this vintage audio or maybe into vintage cameras too. I'm a huge fan of like early 1960s cameras, and specifically kind of the 1950s and early 1960s gear, although I do have some stuff earlier than that. But yeah, I just wonder if there's some synergy between the two subjects. And obviously I'm not going to drop the audio content, and that's not my goal here. And I did create another channel that has like 100 subs on it, and I'm thinking, do I really want to go through the effort to create a whole separate channel and deal with like building that up and the work that takes? Because I'm pretty sure that doing that and getting that channel going would take more effort than I'm really wanting to put into this. And I also am afraid that may end up, not having as much audio content while I'm working on that other channel. And I don't want to spread myself too thin. I know sometimes there's kind of lapses of content already, and so I don't want to end up harming this channel trying to start another one. But I really love vintage cameras, and I know a lot about the history on, like Rolly, Pentax, Leica, and some of these other brands that are really popular. Plus I've got some really kind of cool oddball cameras that I think people would like to see and know more about. I also know a lot about doing camera repair. There's a lot of things that people that aren't like pros can do to repair and upgrade some vintage cameras, especially if it's the point where it's like, well, it doesn't work at all. It's pretty useless without somebody fixing it. It's really not worth spending hundreds of dollars on, like a Bosley TLR, but it's a cool little camera, and I don't like having anything in my collection that doesn't work. None of them are like shelf trophies or shelf queens or whatever you want to call that. You can put film in them and they work, or they're not sitting in my collection. And so, anyway, just wondering if that's something that folks that are subbing to this channel would be interested in seeing, maybe once a week doing a highlight video on a camera or a brand or some camera history or something like that. And for me, it's pretty easy content to make. I don't have to like go out and buy kits and parts and build stuff and all that kind of thing. It's basically just sitting down with a camera and telling y'all what I know about that stuff. So let me know in the comments again what you think about a little bit of photography content added to the channel, because again, I can't see going through building up another channel again, and I promise it's not going to detract from the number of videos or projects that we're going to be working on. It just gives me something to fill in when I don't have any like good live content on tube audio to show. And I feel like it's kind of like, been venturing out into some speaker stuff. And I had people saying, hey, can you do some more speaker content? And obviously speakers are more directly related to the tube audio thing than photography or cameras are. And yeah, I don't want to upset you folks that have subbed saying, what are you doing? I sub to WatchTube Audio, but sometimes there's a weird synergy between hobbies that, yeah, I'm not even sure if they exist or not. But I have been kind of surprised how many people recognize the RA4 and the E6 chemicals and figured out what the Ilford paper's for. And so it makes me think that there's probably some photographers or people that are into vintage photography. And what really got me thinking about this was my boyfriend was house sitting, and the guy had some super high-end audio gear, and he also had a big vintage camera collection. And so that got me to thinking that maybe these are things that could go hand in hand. And I'm not going to get into, current cameras or reviewing mirrorless stuff or going down that rabbit hole. It's definitely going to be, vintage camera, maybe some large format stuff, and do a lot of medium format photography. So get into Rollies and Hasselblads and that kind of stuff, and just kind of show you some cool stuff I found. Maybe show you some tricks on using some of the old vest pocket Kodaks, how to respool 127 film and that kind of stuff. I mean, there's a lot of content that I could create. And again, it's fairly easy content for me to whip together a video on. So now that we've gone over this, I want to talk about another thing that I'm sure some of you guys have seen. And I've been involved in multiple different hobbies throughout my life. Obviously, vintage cameras or photography in general. It's been a hobby of mine since I was a teenager. And then I got into bicycling and did that for 10 years. Lately, audio gear. I mean, I've been involved with audio stuff since I was a teenager as well, but just in the last 10 years or so, I've really focused on, this higher end audio stuff. And it's so weird to me. And I see this again in so many hobbies. And what got me thinking about this, I saw a video of a guy that does a ham radio channel. And no, we're not going to get into ham radio, but I guess because I'm into tube audio stuff, ham radio stuff pops up in You Might Like things on YouTube. And he was ranting about how there's like this old guard in ham radio that just is rude and hostile and mean to anyone that is entering the hobby. And I really see the same thing happening in tube audio, and I just don't understand it. I don't know why people do this or feel threatened when new people come into a hobby. And do they not understand that without new people entering their hobby, especially something like tube audio, folks are dying and retiring and getting out of the hobby or getting out of the industry just left and right, left and right. We've seen a half a dozen transformer manufacturers fold up shop and just quit making stuff. And we've seen several folks that used to be, a good place to go get new old stock tubes. They've retired, and I don't blame them. I mean, 65, 70 years old, they don't have to do this for the rest of their lives, and probably tired, and they're just like, man, I'm done. And I can totally relate to that. So for this hobby to continue, we need new, younger folks getting in the hobby, and when they, stick their head up out of the ground and somebody smacks them with a hammer, tries to run them over with a lawnmower, it's going to die. And yeah, people will listen to tube audio gear, and they'll be the higher end Macintosh kind of market and that sort of thing. But as far as like DIY, building stuff with your hands and really getting involved with like learning how this stuff works, that's going to just die off if people feel like they can't even make a comment on a forum or at an event without some old curmudgeon, nasty, rude person going after them because somehow they feel threatened. And I'm going to link the video below. This guy's talking about like going to Hamfest or something, and these old guys just being nasty and hostile to the younger folks that are there. And I don't know whether they're trying to prove, hey, I'm smarter than you are. And I deal with that in my daily life too. Folks that just think they're the smartest person in the room. And that's annoying as well. But this is like next level. And like what I'm trying to do, I've told y'all many times, I'm not a trained engineer. I didn't go to college, I got no degree, and I wasn't like a professional engineer for 30 years of my life. I did other things. And this is just something I enjoy diving into, and it's all self-taught, and I'm trying to share with you guys like just the very basic kind of level of understanding of what's going on inside these things without diving into like these 14 variable formulas trying to calculate things down to the last tenth of a volt of what they should be. I mean, like I'm just building stuff and measuring stuff with my voltmeter. And I think that's what most of you guys are going to be doing. And they're just kind of general. If I put, hey, this is 20 volts, yeah, the voltmeter might be reading 19.4 volts, but I write 20 volts on the schematic, so if you're building this thing and there's kind of a plus or minus 10% on a lot of this stuff, given the, you're using 5% resistors, the tubes are probably plus or minus 10%. None of this stuff's going to be exact. I'm just putting down numbers so you can say, hey, I'm in the ballpark of what this is supposed to be. We're good to go. And you don't have 200 volts where you're supposed to have 20 volts. So anyway, I know I've ranted about this before, but we really do have to stand up for each other, especially when we see people misbehaving like that. They need to be called out. Because if those people continue to dominate what's going on in this hobby, we're not going to have a hobby. And we're going to let it get ruined by a handful of people that have a tiny ego that they're trying to inflate. Is the only thing I can figure. Again, if you want to put in the comments what your thoughts are about why this happens. Again, it's not just in tube audio. It happens in photography forums. It happens everywhere. But this is supposed to be fun. And if it's not fun because you feel like that people are being hostile or you're upset emotionally because of some thing related to a hobby that's supposed to be fun, then people are just going to stop doing it. And I guess that kind of leads into the same thing of when folks are emailing me wanting me to do stuff for them, and their reasoning is, I don't have time to do this. What are you in this hobby for then? I mean, to me, hobbies are a way to spend your free time in an enjoyable way. And why would you want somebody doing that for you? But that's a rant for another day. So anyway, I guess we're going to wrap this up here. Again, leave in the comments if you'd be okay with me dropping an occasional camera-related video in this channel, or you're like, no, I don't want to see that. Take it somewhere else. So anyway, hope you're enjoying my channel. If you are, please subscribe. We're right at 10K subs. Got another 250, I think, to get there, which will be a cool little milestone to hit. Thanks to all you Patreon folks, and especially thanks to you folks that give me donations. I really appreciate you guys that dropped a donation after I published the BOM for the KT120 build. I did spend about 5 hours, and I know some people that are good with spreadsheets and are detailed oriented are like, oh, I could whip that up in 20 minutes. Well, I can't. And it takes me a long time to go through and search the part numbers and look at the schematic and make sure. And I'm sure that's why people want me to publish the BOM, so they don't have to spend hours making up a list. And I apologize in advance if there's anything wrong with it. I'm sure somebody will be emailing me that there's a resistor that's got the wrong part number or the wrong number. And again, if you're ordering parts and you're one of those people that gets really upset if you have to make a second order because you missed 2 resistors, you need to look through my BOM and the schematic and make sure that everything looks right to you too. I don't want people getting upset at me because I missed 1 resistor off the schematic. So anyway, again, thanks all you folks. Really appreciate y'all watching my channel, making all this possible. Without you, we wouldn't be doing this. And we'll see you at the next Monday Monologue.